Well, greetings everyone, and welcome to a special online event today called Feeling at Home in Your Body. 3 keys to releasing old trauma and opening to your body wisdom. My name is Stephen Dinan. I'm the founder and CEO of the Shift Network, and I'm really delighted to be with you here, learning right alongside with you from a remarkable woman. Her name is Suzanne Scurlock-Durana, and she's a leading conscious awareness instructor whose teachings empower people with practical tools to experience more joy in your body, more body intelligence, and really open up your body's innate wisdom that allows you to live in a much more robust and joyful and healthy way. So she's created the Comprehensive Healing from the Core training curriculum in 1994. She was one of the original instructors mentored by John Upledger. She continues to teach craniosacral therapy and somato-emotional release, and she's done Emily Conrad Daud's continuum movement. She's basically all these different modalities that are about accessing a deeper level of body wisdom are been synthesized in a really beautiful way so that you can come and live more fully in your body and experience the joy and benefit and blessing of that. So welcome, Suzanne, to today's program.
Thank you, Stephen. It's a delight to be here with you again.
We're going to have this hour with Suzanne, and I just want to let everyone know up front that we're going to have a chance to go much, much deeper. She's actually agreed to do an advanced program, the first of its kind with the Shift Network, called the Core Embodiment Process, coming home to your body wisdom with trust, presence, and freedom. It's going to be a 21-week journey, really allow you to explore a lot of different dimensions of this and open up to a whole nother level, and we'll talk some about that towards the end of today's program. So Suzanne, I always like to start with a little bit of personal backstory, kind of get a feeling for who you are. So let's share a little bit about your journey of coming home to your body wisdom and feeling at home in your body.
Well, thank you, Stephen. One of the things that has informed my process of coming home to my body is being a craniosacral therapy instructor and being someone who is helping people all day long to be more embodied via the touch that I give and the presence that I have for people. My own story also began with my own trauma at the age of 17, where I almost died. And in realizing when that trauma happened, that my body wisdom was speaking to me, and I just didn't know how to listen to it. So at 17, I began questioning and looking at how can we actually listen to what's going on internally more deeply. And as the decades passed and I became a cranial instructor, I began to work with my own inner consciousness through very many different kinds of meditation and practices. I felt so grateful to have been given a number of different experiences that have turned the lights on for me, which I'm in turn going to be sharing with your audience as to how to really start to get a quality of life that most of us today are challenged to have because of the speed that we work at, because of the amount of tension and stress in the culture as a whole, and because of the world today and what it demands of us. So my prayer is that by the end of today, I'll be giving each one who's listening to this some steps that they can really work with to help them reclaim an experience that gives them a deeper quality of life.
I'd love for you to give a little context about the shift in our understanding of the body that is underneath all the work that you're representing, because we've inherited a Western lineage of culture that in some ways kind of almost sees like our body like an animal to be ridden and disciplined in certain ways, rather than like a source of great intelligence and joy, like that where our mind is kind of dominating our body in a certain way. And that's like the legacy of Western culture. And there's this whole shift of paradigm to seeing more of the intelligence up, if you will, from the body than we've inherited. So I'd love for you to share more about that shift of perspective and what you've discovered about all the body's extended capacities.
One of the things that we want to remember is that most of us are born with everything that we need in our innate sense of who we are, in our bodies itself. And that as we grow up in our culture, as you said, we literally are trained out of what we know. And we're trained out of what we feel. And we're trained out of what we sense. We're told that what we sense isn't what we're sensing. Or when we come out with something as kids, I feel bad you're shuttled off to the doctor. The doctor will tell you what's wrong. In other words, you don't know what's wrong with yourself. You don't have that wisdom internally. So that is one of the key places where people begin to lose something that is innate to us as human beings. Then you have trauma, like what I experienced and what many, many, many people in our culture today are experiencing. Trauma literally freezes and locks us out of the body's wisdom. Mm-hmm. And I think one of the other pieces is you just said, the Western culture, our educational system says to us, your body is not as wise as your brain, the one between your ears. Now, mm-hmm. one of the cool pieces is that as I have been teaching this for many, many years, and also going deeper and deeper with what I know about craniosacral therapy and the wisdom, the cellular intelligence of the body that we're constantly we're being taught to pay attention to as we meet with people and help them with hands-on to know what's gone wrong in their system and how to correct it. I think that the whole process of cellular intelligence and the deep wisdom of the body is coming forward now for the first time, probably in several hundred years. And mm-hmm. I think that it's kind of cool because things that I was just doing intuitively 25 years ago, we now have research to back it up. The gut brain, for instance, and how much of our immune function and how much of our endorphin production happens in the gut brain. HeartMath has been doing wonderful research on how the heart's neurology, how the brain in the heart brain, really has a large effect on how clearly you and I think and how creatively we're able to put things together and how deeply it affects the quality of our lives. One of the things I see, even with all the practices that I have, is how difficult it is to really drop into the present moment and love where I am in any given moment.
You mentioned trauma in what you were sharing there, and I think that's one of the key things that to understand for folks, that it's like trauma can have this big connotation, like you have to be in a war, or you have to have been sexually
right.
abused or something, but there's a lot of like subtler traumas that kind of accumulate in our body and keep us disconnected from some of this kind of more feeling at home that you're talking about.
Absolutely. It's very interesting because one of the things that can happen, I mean, you can trip and fall going into your house and feel stupid for doing it. And then not only did you bang up your knee, but you feel slightly off center for hours. And then you forget something that was important. Now, those are small traumas that actually begin to add up in your life. And really, quite honestly, many, many people these days have the trauma of having watched something traumatic happen to someone they love, or 9/11, watching the media, watching the news during 9/11 caused so many different people to end up with PTSD, that post-traumatic stress disorder, because of the fear and the helplessness that it engendered in the visual imagery that their senses were assaulted with across days and weeks afterwards. So trauma can be not only the big things, as you mentioned, but it can also be many, many little things. And I'm thinking about, quite honestly, I'm thinking about a colleague of mine that just recently slipped and fell. She's an athlete, slipped and fell going in on the curb, going into the gym to work out. And it was because she was rushing and she was stressed and she was late. And there were so many things she had on her mind, and she was reading her email on her phone. And this is the kind of thing that goes on for everyone these days. And how do we gain the skills to step back into our center so that we know who we are and we know what's happening, and we can let those things fall away and move through our lives with a lot more grace and ease, even when there's a lot on our plates?
Mm-hmm. Well, it sounds like part of it is that we have to release some of the backlog. So there's all these like little micro traumas that add up over time and that we're kind of accumulating, and then maybe that manifests in a fall or something dramatic. Mm-hmm. So how do you start to discharge some of the old and then open to this kind of more fully present, aware, connected kind of mode of being in the present?
Well, I think that one of the things that I want for people to know is that one of the ways that we are most present is to be able to feel the physical sensations of being in our bodies, being able to feel my inner landscape, you being able to feel your own inner landscape. What's the feeling of your spine resting on the chair right now? Now, a moment ago, before I said that, most of us were not feeling our backbones at all. In fact, we were engaged in maybe listening to you and I, maybe hearing the ping of their email, on your phone beside you, listening to something happening in the next room. All of these things affect us and pull us out of the moment. And the key to coming back into the present moment is to be able to know how to listen to your own inner landscape, the sensations of it, being able to trust them, being able to walk through each moment without judgment. And all of these key pieces bring us deeper and deeper into this moment in time. And therefore, the capacity to begin to let the trauma roll away, be able to meet it and let it go. And then by your very presence, enable you to not have it be as big of a driver, if you will, in your conscious awareness moment to moment.
Great.
Yeah.
Let's formalize. I know we called today talking about 3 keys to releasing old trauma. So let's talk about the first key that you really see as central to doing this.
Well, one of the things that I want to really say to people, and many people I know on this call have done their own inner work, either through body work or through meditation or through practices of some kind. And in many, many cases, there may or may not be a felt sense of your own inner landscape. The concepts, knowing the concepts that I'm about to talk about is important, but it's still one step removed from that direct experience of having your own consciousness awaken within you moment to moment. So the first piece in doing that, the first key, is cultivating curiosity, the attribute of curiosity. And they've actually done research recently. There are a couple of great TED Talks out there about curiosity and how the attribute of curiosity is kind of like the antidote to judgment. Now, the judgmental mind, nothing pulls us out of the present moment faster than judging something. So if you can stay curious, it allows you to stay open to your experience moment to moment and allows you to have a wide lens on what's happening, not only visually, but in a felt sense, in what you're hearing, in how you're taking in the information that you're taking in. So the first thing I say to people, the first key, is to cultivate curiosity and to let go of your judgmental mind. So many of us have been taught to judge everything. If it's not linear, if it's not reasonable, if it's not logical, it's not valid. And that is just not true. So much of what life gives us has nothing to do with our left brain. It has to do with the felt sense of being alive that we all crave and really are looking for moment to moment. So curiosity is number 1. Number 2 is the attribute of trust. Trusting that what you're feeling inside, trusting that it is going to give you what you need to move forward in your world. Now, trust doesn't mean like a rose-colored glasses Pollyanna type of experience, that everything is in absolute perfection. Yeah, it may or may not be, but to learn to trust what you feel internally. Trust what you feel internally. And in trusting that, also to begin to notice what's the reality of what it is you're feeling. Now, the third attribute is awareness, an awareness of your own sensations. Now, when I talk about sensations, I'm speaking to the sensations that are first order sensations, that are the building blocks of our inner landscape internally. So, for instance, if those of you watching can take a moment now, and if you want to just close your eyes and feel inside and feel, do you have a sense of warmth or coolness in your chest right now? Or can you feel anything as you breathe? As you breathe, What's the temperature of the air? And as you settle back, is there a sense of density or spaciousness? Spaciousness. Is there a sense of color or texture? A sense of weight or lightness? All of these are first order sensations because they have no interpretation. There's no story behind them. These are just sensations. So as we move on into an actual exercise of working with your inner landscape, I'm going to suggest that you let your inner sensations be the driver of your bus of awareness. And if there are emotions that show up for you, allow those emotions to rest for a moment, because you know that when we have an emotional state of some kind, there's always a story right behind it that reminds you of something that happened, a loved one that's no longer with you, a favorite pet that's not here anymore, a loss, something that's coming. But you'll always end up finding yourself going to the story behind the emotion. Rather than doing that and getting pulled out of the present moment of sensation, allow yourself instead to drop to the sensation under the emotional state. So for instance, I was just working with someone recently who had a pretty deep loss. And as she was feeling the grief, we were breathing and dropping inside, and she was feeling the grief in her heart and her lungs. I asked her just to notice, what's the sensation of that grief? What's the sensation of it? And rather than going back to the story, she was able to begin to identify that her grief felt heavy. It had a heaviness, kind of a steely gray wetness to it. And as we sat with that sensation, she was able to let it expand and drop even farther in her system. And she began to get information that she would not have had she gotten pulled out of the present moment and back into the story of her grief. So when you come to those moments in yourself, it's very wonderful because it doesn't require that you go back to the story. It allows you to stay right here in the present moment.
It's interesting. As you're speaking about it, it kind of makes it clear that story and judgment are kind of kindred in a certain way, because it's like you're pulling yourself up to kind of a level of abstraction to see above it, so you don't have to connect and feel with it. So his curiosity is like dropping you down through the layers into feeling more dimensions of it, and then there's more intelligence there to access.
Absolutely. And oftentimes the intelligence it's not an intelligence that you can get in book reading or knowledge or all the trainings I've taken or taught across the years. It's an intelligence that's very primal. Mm-hmm. It's something that speaks to us in a very core way about what's most important to us as human beings, to who we are at a soul level. And that's one of the core places that I like to help people reach is, who are you at a soul level? And do you know how to access it and feel it and stay in this present moment of sensation so that what you want and need and what you're here for comes through in a clearer and clearer way?
That's great. Yeah, you don't often think. Oftentimes, we talk about soul, we think of it a little bit of it as above and beyond the body, rather than tethering it into the sensations. And that's where when we do feel at home, when we really come home to our body, it's on a deep level. It's our soul landing. It's our soul landing fully in our flesh and form.
Absolutely, absolutely. And no matter what tradition you have steeped yourself in, many of them don't really want you in the body. It's Maya, it's the trap, it's whatever. And then yet when you really look at the core foundations, almost all of them talk about the body as the temple. Mm-hmm. And so, wait a minute, how does that reconcile? And one of the things that really began to work for me was when I began to get everything in my body integrated from the bottom of my feet to the top of my head, so that there was a conversation going on throughout me that involved all of my different cells, all the organs, all the chakras, all the levels of intelligence of my inner landscape. And my wisest decisions come when I do feel more fully integrated. Those days are wonderful days because things just roll out creatively. There's a lot more joy. There's a lot more access to energy that I want to enjoy my life from.
Hmm.
Yeah.
It strikes me, it's kind of similar to like trying to make some good decisions as a CEO. Is like you have a management team that has a lot of different input. And the way you talk about the body has really been illuminating for me, because it's not just like one generalized awareness, because the heart has its own particular contribution and angle. And you were sharing at one point in the past, like about the feet, and that there's intelligence in your feet and legs. It's different. And that really was like, it was a kind of a paradigm shift. Like, wow, really? Oh, it's my feet intelligence. When you activate that, that's going to bring a different voice or perspective into what's going on.
Yes, yes. And I love the way, one of the last times we were talking, you were talking about how all the different wisdom areas of the body are almost like a medicine circle. In Native American tradition, we talk about when you're going to make a major decision in ancient tribal cultures, the whole tribe would gather, and every person on the circle or every member of the tribe would get to speak and have their perspective. And in the same way, all the different wisdom areas, the cellular intelligence of the body is meant to be informing us moment to moment. And this is a key process. And it does take a pretty big paradigm shift. Believe me, when I first began doing cranial work, Dr. Upledger was such a huge mentor for me, because I'd be there trying to put things together at an anatomy level and a mental level, and I'd be logically trying to figure out why this was happening in the body. And he'd just look at me and go, Scurlock-Durana, get out of your head, get into your hands. What's the body telling you? And oh, okay. And he did really have to push me on that for a while. And I'm eternally grateful, because now I have much more access to the different parts of me that can help me in any given moment. It doesn't mean I'm in any way like an enlightened being or perfect or anything like that, but my commitment level to that is very high. And it's been my course of study for the last 25, 30 years. So I'm happy to be talking with you about it.
Most people come through Western culture become a little more head oriented, because that's how we're trained. And so how do you start to then bring your awareness more fully out into the different areas of your body?
I do this, Stephen, by teaching people how to bring their curiosity in their body. And if you like, I can do an actual 10, 15-minute exercise where we actually dive in and start to actually experience what I'm talking about. Because we can talk about it for the rest of our call, but unless people actually get to experience it, it's as though they're one step away from this quality of sensation, of inner awareness that I'm talking about. Like it's the direct experience of life when you're actually living from inside your body, connected to your mind, but not driven by your mind or controlled by your mind.
Well, we often find it like 10 or 15 minutes is sort of a big chunk of a call like this or event like this. So maybe you do something a little shorter, but just give people a taste.
Sure. Oh, absolutely. So if you would, I'm going to just ask your callers, unless of course you're driving right now, to close your eyes and allow yourself to drop inside into your breathing. And notice the sensation. Get curious about the sensation of just normal breathing for you. Feel the rise and fall of your chest. Notice the temperature of the air as it goes in through your nose and back through your sinuses and down into your lungs. Yeah. And notice what your backbone feels like right now, resting on whatever you're sitting on, whatever's supporting you. Notice your heart beating You may even want to place your hand on your heart. Good. And notice the pace of your heart. Does your heart feel like a particular color or density or size? Good. And taking another easy breath. Let your awareness drop down into your belly, your sitting bones. Is one sitting bone resting more fully on the chair or the couch? Or are they both resting pretty equally? Just being curious. Curious. Good. Good. And then noticing what your legs feel like. Your thighs, your knees, your calves. Yeah. And your feet resting on the earth. Good. One foot resting more fully than the other. Or do they feel pretty equal? And then noticing as your feet are resting, how do your bones feel to you? Let your awareness drop deep into your bones, into the inner recesses of who you are. We know that our bones are all full of air spaces, or we'd all weigh 800 pounds. So let yourself just breathe right into all those air spaces in your bones, deep into your inner sanctum. Good. 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 And notice the sensations of resting so deeply inside yourself. Is there a sense of peacefulness or centeredness? Is there a sense of quiet? Good. Notice how your feet feel resting on the floor. The sensation of your back being supported. Notice your thoughts. Yeah. Good. And then very gently allow your awareness to come back onto the call. And with your eyes gently opening, notice what it feels like to be you right now compared to when we began this simple exercise 5 minutes ago. What's it feel like to be you now? Can I ask you that, Stephen? What do you notice?
I had this recognition that I've subtly seen my bones as not me. It's sort of like something that like I'm on top of my bones. I'm the flesh and not the bones or something like that. And I just
Yeah.
started to
Yeah.
like open into like being the bones as well. And that was just sort of an interesting recognition that somehow it's like I'm kind of my identity is like glommed onto the skeleton, but it's not the same as the skeleton because the skeleton stays behind or something on the other side.
Right.
But seeing that like there's a solidity and groundedness and toughness that the bones have, that if I bring that in as me, that actually strengthens me.
Exactly. Yeah. And one of the interesting pieces is that as I began to work with all the different wisdom areas of the body, which you and I have done some work on before, in reclaiming your body, one of the things I saw is that some people really identified with their bones. Boom, this is me, I'm solid. Other people really identified with their legs, for instance, athletes. Yeah, my feet and legs. I got my feet and legs. Other people are really identified with their heart. Oh, I feel so much. In fact, honestly, oftentimes people in the circles that we run in feel as though they have too much feeling at a heart level. The empathy that we have feels like a liability rather than an asset. And
Hmm.
when, yeah, I mean, it really often feels that way to people that have a lot of empathy. So what's the antidote for that is learning how to fill your inner energy reservoir so that you have a capacity to have healthy boundaries and then to be able to feel what you feel and not have to feel like you have to take it on.
Hmm.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, say more, a little more about the boundaries. So I didn't quite get the bridge there between filling your energy reserves and establishing healthy boundaries. So is
Okay.
that part of you're
Okay.
kind of having a more of an energetic sense of where your body or your body limits are, and then you fill up to the inside to that limit. So just say a little bit more.
Exactly, exactly. So here's the deal. When I mean, I studied with a number of metaphysical teachers years ago, and they used to tell us if we went into a toxic circumstance or we had a toxic family member, to surround yourself with white light. Or in some of the shamanic trainings I took, it was about putting up a shield, but that takes a lot of energy. What actually is much easier, and it's actually more fun to live this way, is to get practices that fill your inner energy reservoir. So your feet and legs are full to your skin, your bones are full, your pelvis, your gut, your heart, all of your limbs, your brain, your head, your face, everything. You begin to know how to fill up and sense what's going on in this present moment sensation way. And when that happens, you actually have a much clearer idea of where you stop and the world starts.
Hmm.
Now, when that occurs and something comes into your world that you do not want to be a part of, you're at home in the boundary of who you are, your skin, or your energy field that, of course, extends beyond it, to say, nope, not mine. I don't want that. And you're very present. When we're depleted, we're not at home in our own system, and things can cross our boundaries and we don't even recognize it until suddenly we're carrying somebody else's stuff that we didn't mean to take
Hmm.
on, and wondering, why do I have to feel so much all the time? Well,
Hmm.
empathy is actually an incredible asset. But the easiest way to have it maintained as an asset is to keep your own energy reservoir full so that you know where you are in space. You have healthy boundaries, boundaries that can move, boundaries that can shift. So, for instance, if you're holding that beautiful baby of yours, you want to be able to have a boundary that has a softness and an opening to it to be able to connect more deeply. But if you're having to have a tough financial conversation with someone that's not a very good person, you have to know where you stop and they start in order to not let yourself get railroaded into something you didn't want to do, right?
Right.
In
How does
both
this connect?
cases. Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to ask a little bit more about the trauma side of this. So it's like, how does trauma impact the ability to set boundaries in this way, and kind of connecting back to the releasing of old trauma there?
Well, I mean, here is one of the very sad things. Most people who have trauma, um, in order to deal with the trauma at the time that it happens, they do some version of, and there's a freezing that goes on. And so they're literally locked out of different parts of their body that would have the wisdom that they desperately need in order to navigate. It's very difficult for them to even know how to fill up. And that's a very hard thing, because then they're not present for what's going on around them, and they tend to get re-traumatized because they don't see it coming and they don't know why. So the quality of trauma is that it puts you in double jeopardy. You're not in your body, and particularly if it's been such a trauma that you've dissociated or you've hunkered way down inside and built rigid walls. In both cases, you're not there to actually be able to fill out to your boundaries and be really present in the moment. Trauma pushes us out of the present moment and leaves us stuck in the past or terrified of the future, one or the other. And
Mm-hmm.
in both cases, we lose the wisdom of the present moment about what's happening. Not only the wisdom, but we lose the joy that's in each moment that we long for
Mm-hmm.
in many ways. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. I love the
Yeah.
way you describe it. I also just want to get a sense a little bit around the unfolding or a dissolving of old trauma. Like one of the things that I've taken from just our initial conversations is that there's a trusting of the rhythm of that as well. Sometimes we can kind of like want to push out the old trauma and get rid of it. It's like instead it's like kind of more curious, exploratory, and also trusting the timing, because sometimes it takes a little while for these things to dissolve or clear from our system, right?
You are absolutely correct on that. And one of the things I do when I'm teaching people is to make a commitment to themselves, to let things resolve at a pace that their inner landscape can integrate.
Mm-hmm.
And the inner wisdom knows. So it will give it to you at a pace. And sometimes things roll out, and sometimes they creep out, and sometimes it's just a thin layer and another thin layer and another thin layer. And then all of a sudden, it's like the Red Sea parted, and you can see in a way you couldn't see before. And these are things that happen emotionally, happens through awareness, it happens through good body work, meditative practices, spiritual practices of all kinds. If they're body centered, can help us to get more and more in the present moment of
Mm-hmm.
sensation.
I had another question around trust. So the third key that you talked about is trust.
Yeah.
And we in one of the bullet points for today, we said how trusting the smart way can attract more resources to you. So let's just talk a little bit more about trust, because trust, there's also, you don't want to be taken advantage of by
Right.
people either. So there's like, sometimes people are like, well, I don't know who I can trust or not trust. So trust can have a lot of charge around it. So what does trusting in the smart way mean to you?
So trusting in the smart way means um, a quality of having trust of what you know inside, um, open, you know that it opens possibilities. See, here's one of the things. I was looking at Stephen M. R. Covey's book, The Speed of Trust, that he wrote about corporate functioning, right? And one of the things he says is that corporations that run and are based on trust from the top down, that you trust that your employees are going to give you the best, and that they trust that they're going to put it out there in the best way, that things that are built on trust actually open possibilities. When you are running on fear, and fear is the antithesis of trust, when you're running on fear, everything closes and gets very contracted and tight. There's trauma again for you, okay? So when you have that, what happens is that all of those possibilities get very, very narrow. We all know at least a half a dozen people that, if you think back in your life, and you might even be in this boat, think about circumstances or times where you've seen people or known people that had so many resources around them, and they just couldn't see them. There was so much fear and so much tension that they could have a resource right beside them and they couldn't even see it. They're there going, no, 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 I have nothing. No, I can't do this. I'm not enough. That quality of no trust literally closes the doors to possibilities that are out there for all of us all the time. The smart way means you don't assume that everything is going to be working out exactly the way you saw it and wanted it to be. That's kind of a Pollyanna trust. That's not a smart way to trust. Smart way to trust says, okay, I know that if I adopt an attitude of trust right here, if I cultivate this attribute of trust, that I will have more possibilities available. And when I have those possibilities available, I have a much higher possibility of having the outcome that I want in this particular circumstance, the outcome that's optimal for me at this time,
Mm-hmm.
and for those around me. Does that make sense?
That's a great distinction. That's
Yeah.
really great. Um, one other area that I think would be interesting is I appreciate the practice you guided us into kind of opening into a different sensory understanding of different parts of our body. Maybe you could give a little bit of a understanding of how how you can incorporate these kinds of sensory awareness experiences into a daily practice so that we're continuing to build more capacity, feel more at home, release old traumas, that it becomes like a sort of like a body meditation that is opening
Mhm.
up new possibilities each day.
Well, I have to say, one of the key pieces is to practice a body-centered um, meditative state, if you will, every day so that it becomes habit. Because when the chips are down and the stress hits, if it's a habit, You know to go and feel your feet and your bones and trust your heart and your gut in tandem. And then to think about what you need to do.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't have it as a steady practice, it's a little bit more difficult, and you'll start to say, oh, well, that embodiment stuff, that core embodiment stuff that Suzanne teaches, it just doesn't work. Well, yeah, it does work, but you got to practice it. And it has to be something that is built in, whether it's something you do in 5 breaths, and I actually do teach a 5-breath core embodiment process, or whether you do it in a longer way in order to cultivate and be able to cultivate trust and awareness and fullness, so you can hold the different things that are traumatic inside of you and heal them and integrate them over time. Did that answer your question?
Yeah. So it sounds like the 5-breath method is sort of like the quick tune-up, and then you get the deeper dive when you really have something bigger that needs to move through. So maybe share a little bit about that quick tune-up, the 5 breaths. Like, what are you doing there?
Well, one of the things I do is I teach people to just drop right down into their feet with their awareness. So right now, for instance, just notice your feet on the floor. Let's get our feet, just feel, you can rub your feet back and forth a little bit so you can really feel the bottoms of your feet, right? Okay, and you know that we're connected to the Earth's gravitational field, and the Earth supports us all the time. So you are going to breathe in through the bottoms of your feet as though your lungs were right there. And you're going to breathe in whatever would nourish and nurture you most right now in this moment. So whatever sensation would really nourish you. And we're going to do it in 5 breaths. And the first breath, you're going to breathe in, and you're going to just say to your feet and legs and knees, thighs, whatever would nourish you most, just soak it up. Then the next breath, we're going to do through our torsos, and the next breath, down our arms and hands, up and out the crown of our heads. In each breath, you are mentally asking each area that you're moving into, what would nourish you most? And then breathing into that area. Okay? You want to play with it? So you got your feet on the ground, got your lungs right down there in the bottoms of your feet. This works best if you close your eyes so all of your awareness can be inside. And then just ask, and we're going to take that first breath all the way up to your knees. Second breath, up into your pelvis. Third breath, all the way up into your heart and lungs. Nourishing and nurturing your chest. Fourth breath, down to your fingertips. And then that 5th breath, filling all of you and all the way up and out the crown of your head. Good. Good. We first called this process the emergency grounding and filling, or emergency core embodiment, when you were really in a rush. And now we just call it the 5 breath.
5 breath.
Yeah.
Nice. Well, I like that. And I think it's interesting also just to reorient from like the ground up. Like, I think oftentimes, so many spiritual traditions and practices kind of tend to be top down. And so to kind of start from the ground up gives you a whole different anchoring in your body and in real time.
Well, and notice right now, all of us have just done that 5 breath. Notice what it feels like to be in your body right now. You've just filled it in 5 breaths. I don't know about you, but I feel there's a little bit of a tingle. I feel a little denser and more present at that sensation level. Mm-hmm. What do you notice?
Yeah, I notice more tingling. I definitely am more aware of my feet. I can just feel a solidity of being present and connected. I'm here I'm actually on Maui right now, and I can hear some waves in the background and just feel the sense of like, just kind of almost riding on top of this supportive environment rather than kind of in a mental activity.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's one of the key pieces for each one of us, is to have our consciousness awaken throughout. It is, it's every cell of who we are. It's the energy field that is imbued in all of our cells and around us all the time. All of these things are forming who we are. And our capacity to really feel it in the present moment is what brings us the experience, like a really richer, higher quality of experience of being alive. Not just the mental quality of knowing about it, but actually feeling and sensing it. And that's for me, the delicious part about this is that the very practices that we have to work in order for them to become habits, the very things that we need to do in order to have healthy boundaries, for instance, actually give us more of a sense of juiciness in our lives, more presence. So it's not just that you're working hard to have healthy boundaries, you're actually doing a practice that you actually feel more alive in the process of learning how to say yes and no where it's needed.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I like juiciness as a term. It's like even better than presence. Presence sounds so, it's a little bit calm, but juiciness, like that's a great.
It's been one of my favorites. For quite a few years, people were saying, "Oh, they're going to take that wrong," and I said, "No, it just really feels. When you feel really alive, it feels juicy. It doesn't feel dry and mental.
Fruit.
Right. Exactly."
Beautiful. Well, I think this is a great time to shift gears and talk more about your upcoming program. So first of all, it's just evident in being with you just how much you know, that you're drawing from all these different lineages that have really pioneered new understandings of our body intelligence and body wisdom, and you're synthesizing them in such a practical and powerful way that I just feel really blessed to engage with you. And so we're really grateful that you are doing a full upcoming advanced training for folks. It's a 21-week process. It's called the Core Embodiment Process, coming home to your body wisdom with trust, presence, and freedom. So love for you to share just what is it that you're going to be doing in this program? What's the value to folks for going through the core embodiment process? And then we can talk a bit more about the details.
I think one of the biggest values for people in this 21-week process is that it will give them the time, the discipline, and the capacity to be able to learn skills that help them come home fully embody in who they are. And that takes time, it takes practice, and it takes weaving in and out through all different levels: the mental level, the emotional level, the physical level, the spiritual level, all of these levels weave together and are important areas to be working with. So my prayer and my goal is to help each person in that workshop to have a much deeper core embodiment in August than they begin with in January.
You can find all the details on this program at coreembodiment.com. Again, that's core, C-O-R-E, embodiment.com. And as Suzanne mentioned, it's a 21-week program. We don't have any prerequisites for this program. So you can enter in from wherever you are right now. You could be a professional working with somatic experiencing kinds of work, or you could be just on a path of growth and development, realizing that you've lived a lot of your life in your head, and this is your next growing edge to really open up to a whole deeper field of body intelligence. And it could be there's traumas you want to clear from your past that have been stuck for a while. It could be that you're just wanting to feel more vibrancy and more energy and juiciness, to use the word that Suzanne.
The other piece that I see, the people that would get a lot of value out of this are people who have to hold space for other human beings on a regular basis, and they want to do it from a place of fullness and joy and energy, rather than being depleted by what they do. So we're talking body workers, healthcare people, mental health people, parents, teachers, ministers, all the people on the planet today that care about other human beings and hold space for them, and who need to do so in such a way that they're not losing energy. We need all of the caring people on the planet today to be able to stay energized and to keep doing what we do. It's really, really needed. And they will get that from this 21-week course.
Well, it's really clear in how you were talking about the boundary setting and filling up from the inside and becoming more aware of different parts of your body, that really is the foundation, so that you're not doing a bunch of unconscious things to take on other people's stuff.
Right.
energy and or get cluttered up with a lot of things that aren't yours.
Yeah.
And what you're saying also makes it clear that this program really is also for people who are very sensitive, and it might be helpful to be able to set better boundaries for yourself and to have a deeper sense of being at home in your own body, so that you're not being buffeted about by things from other folks as well.
Yeah, and I think, you know, that one of my really pat phrases in the last year or two has been, make your empathy an asset rather than a liability, please, because we need people with empathy in the world today. Yeah.
Amen to that. Amen to that. Great. Well, again, you can find all the details at coreembodiment.com. I'll say a few other things. So first of all, this is a video-based program, since this is about embodiment, and Suzanne gives great demonstrations and guidance in how to engage different processes, and doing that over video really enhances the experience. So we're going to be doing it live and with video, and allow you to engage her in questions and answers and exchange. So it's a committed field of practice that will stretch across many nations and across the world, and really creates a unique kind of transformational community to do this. Of course, it's going to be on Tuesdays at noon Pacific time. And if you can't make the live time, you can still get the full value, because we do have the recordings of every class session, including the video and audio, as well as a transcript word for word, so you can keep up and still participate online. The course is structured in 5 main modules, 5 teaching modules over the course of 8 months. We don't have time to go into each in a lot of detail, but maybe if you can just give us a little highlight of coming attractions in each. So module 1 is on our healthy aliveness and what impedes it.
You know, in module 1, we're going to talk about the 5 principles that are the backbone of healthy aliveness, and how they are signposts for us as to whether we're going in the right direction or away from healthy aliveness. So that's going to be the key piece in that first module.
Great. Module 2 is on your growth steps towards true freedom.
Yes. And now in that module, we will be looking at where we get caught, how things pull us off track, how to be aware of those things, and how to step into practices that help you to begin to integrate them and get them on board and get them out of the driver's seat of your bus.
Sounds great. Module 3 is on activate your inner landscapes resources.
That one, we're going to do 2 major pieces. One on breath, that's calming, centering, and integrating. And the second one is going to be on movement, moving from an internally inspired place in a way that really fires up and opens up your inner landscape. So if you're someone that doesn't have a lot of internal sensation, this module will be for you, because I promise you're going to walk away from it with a lot more positive internal sensation of being alive.
Sounds fascinating. Module 4 is on the hidden power of the core embodiment process.
Yeah, in module 4, we're going to step by step look at all the different areas of your life and how you feel internally in each one of those areas, and what you need to do to step into your full power, freedom, juiciness, aliveness in each one of those different arenas, and how it affects your effectiveness, your ability to live the life you came here to live.
Mm-hmm. And finally, module 5 is on find your soul's path. Are you on it?
Yes. The last 2 lessons are going to be on really looking at and fine-tuning, who are you at a soul level? Do you know who you are? Do you know what you came here to do? And are you on that path? And can we help you get there if you don't feel like you're on that path?
Great. Well, it's going to be an amazing journey. And I know you're drawing from many different lineages of wisdom and therapeutic practice and embodiment work. So you're really kind of getting to harvest the best of a whole field of inquiry in this 21-week journey. So I'll say a few other things. First of all, the course starts on January 23rd, and it's, as I said, Tuesdays at noon Pacific time. We also, if you go to coreembodiment.com, you'll see there's a number of great extra bonuses. The first one is called a bonus month on dreams. And this is actually videos from Suzanne that are followed by Q&A with her advanced practitioners. Because she's going to be traveling in the month of June, we actually threw in a whole extra bonus. So you get more value. You stretch the program out a little bit there, and then you get 4 pre-recorded videos where it demonstrate her dream work processes. So you're kind of not only doing the embodiment work, but marrying that with dream work. That's really going to be fascinating.
Oh, you know what, Stephen? I forgot that we're going to do 2 lessons in the internal landscape piece about how I work with dreams and helping people interpret their dreams. So that bonus is going to go right after those lessons while I'm gone. Yeah.
Great. We also have a dialogue with Suzanne and Kate McKinnon on the power of touch and presence, practical steps to getting and staying healthy with craniosacral therapy. So this is one of the key streams feeding into Suzanne's work, and Kate's a leading practitioner of that. And then we're going to go into another bonus. There's all kinds of great bonuses. One is with Dawson Church, a really great scientific thinker, done a lot of work with tapping, emotional freedom technique. And he's interviewing Suzanne on reclaiming your body. And then we have another one with, this is a little more scientific sounding, polyvagal theory and how it applies to craniosacral therapy. This is with Suzanne and Stephen Porges. You want to share a little bit about that?
You know, Stephen Porges is probably one of the leading thinkers today in the research world on trauma and healing trauma, and how the vagal nervous system in the body teaches us that you have to feel safe internally in your body before the body can actually open to healing. So Stephen's actually one of my heroes. I adore him. And this interview is a fascinating interview that if any of you are in healthcare and somatic practices, you will love this particular interview. Yeah.
Great. Well, it's an amazing program, and I should also mention that we do have an extra bonus of a kind when you sign up right away, and that's $100 off. It's a great bonus, and we have that right away now when you sign up today or until December 12th, and so that'll save you $100 off the investment in the program. So we've kept the investment very accessible for this. It's just 7 payments of $189. So you can just build that into your monthly budget. Or if you pay upfront in full, you can save about 10%. So it's $11.97 when you pay in full upfront. You save $126. So you can save $100 today when you sign up at coreembodiment.com. And on top of those other prices, and it starts on January 23rd. So we're very excited about this. I encourage you to go to the page at coreembodiment.com and give it a read. I always find that when you read through the modules, you get a deeper sense of how this is going to play out in your own life. You can get those little aha moments like, oh, I've never explored that. That could be really beneficial. And then you also read the testimonials where people who have been really deeply moved and touched and opened by this work share some of the benefits, and some of those are quite famous. Shakti Gawain, has a great quote here about Suzanne being a brilliant teacher and powerful approach to healing. Tara Brach, who's a great, renowned Buddhist teacher, is a strong endorsement of this work, and there's really a sense of like this is the leading edge of a lot of transformational work that we've inherited all these traditions that many of which spiritual traditions were kind of disembodied. And then we kind of married that with some of the therapeutic work that's coming up. And now there's this kind of deeper marriage of the embodiment work and sensory work with healing and trauma release and ultimately spiritual practice so that we can really blossom as souls in a body and have a better experience doing it. So I really see what Suzanne is offering us all here in this 21-week program as a great blessing and a real benefit for our path of growth and development and healing.
Wonderful. Thank you, Stephen.
Yeah. Well, Suzanne, so, we just have a, minute or two left here. Anything that's still on your heart you want to share with folks who are considering joining you for the core embodiment process?
The only thing I really have to say is that in the world that we live in today, with all of the stresses and all of the challenges that we have, the ability to be in our bodies, to really be centered, to be very present, and to be able to harvest the beauty and the joy around us, as well as being able to think for ourselves and meet the challenges, is vital. It's not optional anymore. It's absolutely vital. So I look forward to having anyone who feels really called be on this 21-week journey with me and my staff. And I'm excited. Thank you, Stephen, for giving me this opportunity.
I know people are in for a real transformational journey. So thank you, Suzanne. It's been a pleasure and honor, very illuminating hour. And I know people are in for a treat if they join you for the core embodiment process upcoming. And you can do that again at coreembodiment.com. And when you do it right away, you get the $100 off, which is a great extra bonus. So thank you, Suzanne, and thank you all. Many blessings, and let's go forth more in touch with our body, more in touch with our joy, more connected to the earth, and just more able to live the life we're able to live. Thank you. Bye now.